like a completely improvised speech about if coffee could talk, what would it complain about? That Alex made.
People hate coffee breath, but I bet coffee hates people breath. Can you imagine all of the disgusting smells that coffee's had to pour into? Because coffee's coming sometimes as like a drug. It's like we need to get this person up and going. There's got to be some World War II trench mouths that were pretty haggard and bloody that like a little bit of coffee to get them to the boat, to get them out of there. There's got to be theater directors, and maybe on point some gross molesting directors and stuff that are guzzling down coffee. And just those gross mouths. So I think that's it, is the morning mouths, the late mouths, the long ER shift mouths, whatever slide and roll down those disgusting gums. You know, coffee's not for babies, and a baby is a clean mouth. It's not for dogs, and dogs not for cleaners. So, sorry, Miss Coffee. All right, and now a 1-minute riff about, Sarah, of all the places you've ever actually been to, which place would you haunt?
Oh, haunting is one of those things I ask myself on the daily. It's like one of my Roman empires. If you can't have a final resting place, that's like whatever they describe heaven as, your best bet is to just do exactly what you're asking me to do right here, which is to pick a place I've already been before that I like enough to hunt. And with the way that humanity is going, I am concerned about some of the structures I've been in collapsing. I do wonder sometimes if people who hunt buildings that then get demolished, do they then take over the new houses? I think that's the main plot of Poltergeist, right? Is that they take over these suburban houses after being like disturbed in their graveyard. So if I picked my apartment in New York that I love so much, because I had a really good view of skyline and all that stuff, it wouldn't matter if it got demolished and turned into an Amazon warehouse eventually. If anything, I would get to now hunt at an Amazon warehouse, and I think that that's good. Good for the workers and good for America. So,
now, you think you get the new building.
Yeah.
And that could be anything, that could be a bad thing. If a library, can you read in the library, or do you have to like go over people's shoulders?
Can you grab stuff, or is it like go straight to teach yourself to grab stuff?
People don't ask me to. Can you just, can you in a book and just see the pages as you pass through?
Prove books.
Super slow. The questions we ask on the show.
We'll find out eventually, I guess.
I hope so.
Welcome to the Goofball Coalition, the podcast that lives where improv and stand-up collide. And now, here's your hosts, Alex Knight and Sarah Kennedy.
All right. Hi. Welcome to the Goofball Coalition, the podcast where improv comedy and stand-up comedy share an Uber home after the bar. And this is the talk they have.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm Sarah Kennedy. I'm a stand-up comedian.
I'm Alex Knight. I'm from the world of comedy.
And today we've got a really interesting topic. And it's kind of a little, but really like dug in deep about it.
Yeah.
So you want to set everybody up?
Yeah, I guess the way that I texted you about it was abuse of power. And again, a lot of our topics, I think, all fold into each other and bleed into other ones. So this one might get out of order a tiny bit, but I think what I mean by that is, again, it's twofold in a sense. There's very clear Me Too-ness in the stand-up world. I think that's very obvious. And then in my personal world, I've seen a lot of directors and theaters and stuff abuse power in many, many different ways. And within that, I'm sure there's sexual basis. But so it's a big thing. And maybe I want to talk about happens, what happened to a person that makes them do that, or how do those things manifest a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, this is one of those tougher subjects. Like sometimes we'll be like, bombing is really hard, and then no, you know what's really hard is actually getting threatened and your career ruined if you announce that somebody did something terrible to you. That's hard.
That sounds like true.
No, that's not. Honestly, at the core of what was going on with Lady CK, that was really what. So obviously, that's what was done to those women and the people who came forward about it was gross and its own abuse of power. But really, what happened was that he had a whole crew of representatives and industry people around him that would follow up afterwards with who it had happened to, threaten them if they came forward with it or told about what had happened, that it would impact their career negatively. So that's the power part of it, even general, I think, than even just like the physical act.
Yeah, so there you go. It's not less, but it's almost like major than improv because that sexual act could be like reprimanded, ended, finished, whatever. But it's the power, again, the abuse of power one is, well, in a sense that man's stand-up so good that we have to lose it. I mean, one, for financially for that group, we can't lose that beast that is feeding us. So, like, the world deserves this person, this Bill Cosby, whatever, brings so much joy that, like, your pain is not equal to.
Or your career isn't either. You know what I mean? Like, if you're on your way up, like, you know, you're cuffing if it's going to get in the way of Cosby's career or whoever it is. Like,
I get it. Yeah. I understand your math.
So, I mean, I think in some people's eyes, it literally is just math. I think it is like money. Like, it really is money. Not even good, but just like a greater sum of money. I think, you know, this person employs this many people. This person is a comedian that's just independently on their way up or whatever, and hasn't really.
They do not matter.
I guess that's what I've seen. But that's kind of we're twofold stuff here, right? So we're talking like society. Yeah, lots of folds, and I think it's also pretty gross. But like society woes and the way that like people in certain roles act just based on their identities. And then there's also just like gatekeepers and people in power and what they do and how those two kind of mesh together. So, okay, so we've mentioned like now 2 or 3 different stand-up comedians. Is there like stuff like that in improv? Oh, actually, I can name one right now that's a really bad one. Show Sam's and everything that's going on there. Like he's a bad guy.
Yeah, well, I think.
I don't even like about the show business at some point. Like,
yeah, that breaks you almost like. So I think some of this topic almost is out our. Like we can speak very clearly about a smaller level of this. That stuff's out of our hands, which it shouldn't be, and it can't be. We can't say like let's be doing that. But you know what I'm saying? It's like I don't understand how it can get that. I mean, maybe I can because I can see the kernels of how it starts. I'd say what happens in improv when you can have abusive players on a team. In Los Angeles, in Albuquerque, it's a smaller community, and a lot of the teams are put together by the group that's putting them together, so you're less in danger of running into it. But like these arranged improv teams in Los Angeles, kind of, you're going to creep there, and that's just someone that maybe their intentions aren't, you know, they're there because they want to be close to people. Like, it's all about love and connection, but it's like, I want to touch the lady up team or whatever. And in that way, that is appropriate for the scene. Or even being, like, incredibly abusive characters in the scene that is them, people releasing their shit. And improv is about releasing their shit, but it needs to be a safe space where both people are, like, ready for that, maybe, like, exercises and stuff. If you're just being a horrible, abusive man, woman in the improv scene, reinforcing stereotypes and getting your shit out, it's that person is experiencing that stuff in that moment. That woman is still being yelled at and called a whore, even though it's for fun and it's in the scene. Like, those are real. And we can get to those deep, wonderful places, again, in a safe environment where we're, like, working and pressing and we know there's love and connection. We can get to those dark things where the eye contact between the players, we know we're both signed up for this. We're both going to do this really weird, awful, uncomfortable, violent thing. But it's us doing it, yeah. And so it's when that power, even in an improv scene, goes too much to one person, one dude, generally. There's abusive women for sure. But generally, dude is like pushing his agenda, his comedic ideas, and that is not improv at all. It's communication, love, and connection.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you bring that up because at some point, even just full-on steamrolling in a scene and that kind of stuff is also a
cool stuff.
That was great. Yeah, but even that can be just the smallest, tiniest splinter of abuse of power because the whole point is to.
It's a team. It's like 6 people on the improv team that have equal power, and when one person is taking a huge fucking handful of the power and leading it, it is an abuse of power even on that level where people are equal. Then you fucking have like a director, a coach, or whatever. There's all kinds of layers of abuse that can happen.
Yeah, it's hard too because it's like business. Like at some point, it's really cool to think of it in just the art sense of it. But then there's like clubs all over the country and theaters all over the country and film sets all over the country that run on the need to make money and that kind of stuff too. And so it just gets muddier and messier to people accountable, and that's been a thing with writing sometimes where it's just kind of been like, it's just jokes. And so when things get really serious and when things get really scary for people and we're working so hard to keep things safe for people, it it's so confusing and hard.
I'm from a little town called Corral, a little farming village, and we have a city council there, and like on it, and what I found is the smaller work kind of, the more people fight for. These city councilors were like cutting over like speed bumps on streets or whatever. It's like, and I think similarly, even on the improv team, it's like a little bit of power you can have, you can be really fucking aggressive about it and fight for it, and then so you get people that aren't respected outside, whatever that means in the real world, they find this place with a little bit of power, a director, even a stand-up that is like getting some support, or like you start to you're fucking cool now.
I think we've talked about this before. Stand-up has very, improv has a higher barrier for entry because you have to take classes and audition to be in things or whatever. But stand-up, you can just show up to an open mic and sign up and then start doing stand-up comedy. So a lot of people have seen it as like a fast-track authority or a fast-track to get a platform.
Yep.
And you could see somebody who is angling for something like that would maybe not have the best, set of ethics or anything like that. Not necessarily.
It's like for me, that's like a power grab. And for me, we love these people, so I have to do it in that fashion. Like, give them the love they get. I guess sometimes it seems like it's an unsatiable hunger or whatever. It's never going to be enough.
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, there's times where in the past, there's been times where it's like a person who is in the community who I wouldn't necessarily like ready, like open a big person of being on a huge stage on their own. I'll still do stuff to make sure they feel included, or I'll make some special accommodations to where the show actually matches up with them, just because they're showing their contributing. So I don't know. I want to talk back to the opportunities. If you just get started,
it's the opposite end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so like that, like sharing with people in the community the love that they need and recognition that they need. There's ways that you can do that that aren't being a gatekeeper for the really good ones. Like that.
I feel too as well. Like mitigating before having our jams and being so incredibly supportive. But if we run our improv jams and whoever's hosting or whoever's at all a little bit condescending or whatever, and be like, we can do better than that or something. Like, and I'm just realizing at this moment, like, we do not do that. And it is just so in our instinct that it very easily can be in some of these jams that happen all the time. But, like, already you're, like, drawing lines or, like, turning people against each other. Like, well, that's, like, incredible to be mean to those people or whatever instead of creating this environment where, again, what we do is so absurd. All we can do is support it. Like, how can you be yelling at someone or condescending someone for playing make-believe incorrectly or in a way that you don't believe,
if they don't also have the tools yet to correct it.
So, yeah, if you may have that awareness or whatever. Or respect the person enough to know, and, maybe they know they do it. Let them learn that on their own, or if they're not ready to realize they didn't do well, then they're not in that level of their growth yet.
Yeah.
So what's the point? If the point besides that person, again, flexing power in some way, like, I have a discerning power. I know that was bad. Don't you think I'm cool for knowing that was bad? I don't know. I just see a lot of that.
I see a lot of that. They just feel like you're not fun. You might take people out and like transfer effects and stuff. But I will also say, the two of us are being very gracious right now about talking specifically about talent and the art of it and all that stuff. And when there's so much other more nefarious stuff that happens.
100%. So maybe we have to use this topic and all of these onion layers because,
so I struggle sometimes because we always, Kelly and I are very vocal about we're not a comedy police. You know what I mean? If something happens, and it happens nowhere near dry heat, it's not really our business unless it really impacts somebody and it would create an unsafe environment once it was in our space.
Yeah, you're trying not to
right, exactly.
Again, that's abuse of power.
Right.
If Sarah thinks she can tell people in every club how their behavior
that's when you get into some canceling people or like going out of your way to make sure they're not in this town again and things like that, and we don't.
Where is that line?
Right.
Because there is that line.
I'll tell you what the line is because I think it's okay.
Yeah,
so
because there has to be a line where you do go, this person is dangerous for the community.
Sure, and I mean honestly, we have so few people that are actually banned. There's a difference between being banned and just not getting booked because mess up with what you put out and stuff. So there's quite a few people that I keep on the lookout. Like we've had 2 of those too, so that's not those people are banned. But that's an easy one. If it's any violence that's happened at a dry heat event or at dry heat that is cause for just you can't physically make things unsafe. If the crowd like sexual assault, something similar allegation, but was like follow up with what's happening. We don't really want that in the space either. Yeah. If you get in fights outside, physical fights, perhaps the outsiders for some reason, that's fine. And then if you
any brawls are fine.
Right, have a really bad breakup, that's, the only thing or if it's like some sort of like interpersonal thing that's happening. I don't think that's necessarily cause to be banned. People can usually still come to the events and watch the events, but we do, we know what's going on with everybody, and we try to give the parties the right kinds of heads up about who's going to be there and that kind of stuff, just to make you make those choices also, just be considerate. But it's also really hard when even doing that as a business owner and just as a person, because then it's like we're not in control of all of the mics. People can still show up and sign up and do stuff, and that's out of our hands. We should be one, like, even if somebody messes up real bad, or there is a bad breakup, or there is something like that, then we should be able to navigate it okay, without it having splinter off into some crazy mad at whatever, like, exactly, becomes a little bit right. So, I just want to keep an eye on all of that stuff, and just make sure that, like, everybody knows, like, you can go, you can change. I don't think if you got in trouble for one thing, there's a couple that are, like, murder, obviously, at the top of the line there. You can probably grow from that and come back and show growth, and then probably, get folded back in, but... And also, murder, like, if you really repented or whatever, who might have... Yeah, so that's me.
Yeah, I think our community, specifically in Albuquerque, like LA, was out of my hands and out of my understanding. So many theaters, so many people. There had been so many deep layers, Illuminati layers of improv abuse and stuff. But I can speak from my community, and like we haven't had to, I don't think, really ban or expel too many people. And if that's been the case, like I've had to let people go from the show for various reasons, quality control, we've had some people that have been toxic throughout the years, of course, and like, then you have to ask people to leave. But normally for me, those are on kind of really still open door. It's like the situation. If you truly want to repair these relationships, then repair these relationships. But yeah, I always believe in that rehabilitation. And because our community is so small, I feel terrible. I don't want that taken away from anyone. Where else to go? Like, it is important to you, and the way you've been expressing yourself. So it takes quite a bit to be asked to remove any of those from the improv community.
It's hard to, because it really is. It's this mishmash of just like a professional setting, and then also just like a community and an art thing. And so it's like, how do you, like, you're basically getting fired, but that doesn't mean you're like hung in the town square. So, but it feels that way.
Or whatever, because it definitely feels that way when you're asked not to do art anymore.
Oh, but which is so interesting, because did you see, like, Rob Schneider, comedian Rob, got asked to do a charity ball, and he was so offensive and bad that they shut him off early, and everybody on the internet has just been like, you see, like, everybody's like, you know what you were getting when you were booked Rob Schneider, that's what he's been doing for years, and he's just, like, going around being like, you're not letting me, I'm not going to change my views on anything, and it's like, that's fine, but...
It sounds like it's just not being hired.
Yeah, exactly. Just be funny. Yeah, exactly. So at that point, it also becomes like being funny is just really important. You don't have to change your views or whatever, as long as it's funny. But if you're just really prioritizing the wrong stuff, then the people who are hiring you can make different choices.
We're quite going on this one, but like, I am curious, like, as a stand-up, did you get a bunch of bad abuse, some of that abuse, any abuse?
That's so interesting. I witnessed it happening to a lot of other people, but and maybe I did, but I'm such a, like, processor. Like, I probably was like, oh, yeah, I guess that was the way that guy was with me or whatever. But no, I never had anything explicit. Like, I never was shown any body parts or even pictures or, people always say weird stuff about being gay. Like, dudes in particular love to bring that up and that kind of stuff. I also say, is it fascinating that I'm married to a woman? that would be the worst of it, and that's the same thing as making a joke about, on the level of, like, take a joke kind of stuff, and I'm never even, because I could, if I'm going to get roasted, I'm going to get roasted, and comedians joke with each other in a way that's a little rougher than I think normal citizens would like to witness, but sometimes they really like to witness it, and that's probably the worst of it, and that's not even that bad.
Again, I'm sure stuff did happen that you weren't aware about, but I also feel, just knowing you, that I agree that stuff didn't happen to you so much. So my next why, what kind of person are you that's navigating the world in a way that people look at you as someone that can, like, take advantage of it? And again, not discounting that you definitely have been, but I do feel like you carry yourself in a way that has avoided that some dude's not going to be like, hey, this is what about it, because he knows it's not going to work.
Yeah, maybe that's
it's not going to get what he wants in some way.
I don't know. Maybe I just got this, like, neurodivergent shield over me that people are like, I don't know that one, she seems sick. But anyway, no, I don't know what it is. No, I don't really think that there's anything on the other end of it that the people that I know who get defeated. Are like,
definitely not saying that.
Right. But it's like,
it seemed like there was something.
Yeah, maybe it was just a weird luck. Or again, maybe it did really just happen to me a lot, and I just was like so like about it that people like gave up eventually. Oh man.
I think similar for me. Like God and like all that, but I did see stuff happening around me, and I didn't feel like I was come after that of people. It was a weird, deep stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder what kind of stuff I was presenting. Maybe we'll kind of do it in our next episode. Advice to our younger selves, but like,
The core of it is that it really shouldn't just happen to anybody, especially when it's all it is. We're goof-ups. We're jokey-jokisons, and there's no reason. Although I will say, I think the reason that sometimes this happens with some people is because if they can't join in on the joy of it, they're happy to just tear us all down. So that also being the case.
I would say, like, it's madness that it happens, and that's maybe my main reason for wanting to talk about it. It's like, is it such a tragedy? It's like, if you're an improv community and there's abuse or whatever, or any sort of comedy community, like, it's not normal. It does not need to exist. There is ways that you can, like, get away from it, I think. Like, do not take part in that. Do not receive that kind of abuse. The structure of improv, it's not necessary.
No. And I think sometimes I just have this belief in stand-up as an art form that's, like, so held that, like, you have a voice and a platform at that is deep, until we get to the level of.
But technically, that person, you on stage for your 5-minute opener, that person for their hour, like, you are still holding the power on the stage for a time limit. Mm-hmm. You're still being, I don't know, given that full level of theory.
Yeah, you have an audience, you can say things out loud, you can speak truth to power, that kind of stuff. And so you can, if you're able, because it's something that you don't agree with, or something that's happened to you that you think was unjust, you can use the stage to also, unless, of course, those case people come and threaten and your entire career can be taken away from you, then no. But you can come up with jokes and you can come up with stuff and you can run it on stage and it's fun too. So, and then I'm obviously not talking about Israeli people, but like victimized or something like that. But I do think there are others, like, where, like, if you don't agree with something that's being said, instead of, like, trying to get at them off stage, you can really get at them on stage and it can be something that is a unique piece of the art.
And I feel long enough with my life, this is definitely actually speaking about my understanding, but a lot of those people that are bad, we found out, like, that stuff will come out, and the sooner you start to stand up for yourself, unintended, the sooner people will be held accountable, and, like, those things will go away.
Yeah.
Speaking up about, and whoever you can, I don't know, I mean, even though you're not the police of the community, it's at least let you know, and if that's the third person you've heard about as a community leader, you just start to, like, make sure I don't know.
Yeah. That's a way to look at it. But then I think about all these times where it's like stuff really has come out about really scary stuff. Yeah, and not only way later, but even if it happened fairly recently, and then all they gotta do is lay low for like a month, and then everybody starts like labeling kind of again. Oh, look at that one. So like Chris is like a known creep with underage girls, and it came out, and it was like blah, and I think it was just here in headlining at the Kiva. So it's like
I saw that. I was confused.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, didn't you say no to that?
So it's like just lay low until they can see again. It's like that's not the same as being held accountable. So I don't know what it happens.
Are there people, it's like voting no with your whatever. Are there people that do not care and or maybe even like that about that person?
Yeah.
that speech, but now we know who you are. I can link to that show. Well, I know more about you, and I want people to be more loving and connected, but at the same time, there is some level of kindness. You want to support those people.
Yeah. It also gets pretty granular. That there's a lot of people who really have seen Priscilla on TV and like have no idea about the other stuff about him, even though there's a documentary made about it. And like, there's some people who just are like,
and then you get where you're like accidentally giving energy to something that is bad and you don't know it. I mean, how many choices you put in?
Right. It's the main plot of it. So it's like impossible to be a good person anyway. But you should try. Everybody should try to be a good person.
I think so. Again, these things maybe wouldn't happen first. Meditation, love, connection, trust, respect, like.
Yeah. One of our more hopeful episodes, obviously, but that's one of the things. Okay, welcome to section 3. This is the time where we usually plug stuff and going on, but you know what, Alex? I got us a listener question.
Hell yeah.
I'm super excited. This one comes from Tito Danner, who is an improviser and on Team Improv on our Patreon, which you can join by going to patreon.com/the Goofball Coalition Podcast, $1 a month, and you can choose your allegiance. Do you stand up for Team Improv? Tito made his choice. Anyway, his question is, has there ever been a time that you've been on stage where you felt like a zen-like feeling? And if so, give each other a story.
A bunch of times, yeah. And they're small. They're like milliseconds when I talk about this in my class a lot. Like, I'll do my improv show, any improv show, and it's maybe an hour in length or so. And I feel like I'm only truly improvising 5 to 10% of the time. And the rest of the time, I'm like, connect with my partner, but I am gently scripting what I'm about to say a millisecond before. And those moments truly tap into like, oh my God, something's coming out of my mouth based on my scene partner's face and this thing, and I'm just saying it without judgment. That feels like that sound. I'm doing it, Peter, I'm doing it, or whatever. So that's it, and it is truly when I'm able to silence, as an improviser, silence all that worry about where is this going, what is this, judgment about it, and I can just like step into what's happening right now. And like specifically, I did a show with my group, the one night Stanley's, and I was like, that's what to talk about. I was some sort of scientist man in the future, and I was sitting down in like my, I don't know, maybe my Starfleet Commander chair thing, and in my head I really wanted, maybe I'd reference Lore or something, but like a visor would come down on me, and I like sat down on chair as I was sitting down, my teammate was like, hey, you put this visor on my head, and there was this moment of like, did I ask for that, or did I just think that, and they were there for me, and so there's a moments when we were so in tune with each other on the improv stage that it's just like, yeah, it's transcendent, and no one could argue watching that moment, like those moments when it happens, and it was perfect, as stupid as it is, it's like, the dog blinked, like, it was perfect, like, yeah, and that's the best part, is how absurd those moments are. Never are they like, I did a backflip and landed it on stage. It's more like, I said a weird thing about cheese, but it was the right thing, because it was no judgment.
It's such a cool thing to have, like, where it seems like there's mind reading happening, or really is all coming out of the, like, and with stand-up, I have felt that way sometimes, where it's an old Bill Hicks rule where, like, they hear us, you're not married to this shit, don't worry about your jokes, if you like something in a moment, connect with it and connect with your crowd. And the times when I felt the most, like, nearing a zen-like moment is when that's the case, where I'm like, even if I'm mid-joke and something happens, and then I have a moment with the audience, or like a person in the audience who said something, and then I let them even have the spotlight for a second, and then we're still, I don't lose it, you know what I mean? And then bring it back, and then like a callback comes out of nowhere, and it just feels like it's filming itself, but it seems smart and I'm in control. I don't know, I'm going to address that, but it's so much friends in this podcast, but that's really, really nice. Like, something that'll never happen again, or maybe I can reread is, yeah, I guess so in a way it feels probably similar to how improv. Yeah, right.
With us too, when we're in that magic flow mind where you state those callbacks, like a lot of times improv, like, remember that from the first scene, and we'll call it back, and it's taught, like, look for callbacks, but when we are not looking for them, and we're just in the moment, they come back. Because we are creatures at it, and we know that, we see patterns, we recognize that stuff. If we look for it, we can do it. If we look for it, like, they pop up, they just float right in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we worked at the energy of the whole world. Yeah, it's really magical when it lines up. Yeah, I think we're just trying. We're just throwing and trying to have that magic happen. And it happens a lot. It happens enough that it's worth trying. It doesn't always happen.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, great question. Thank you. If you've got a question for us, I'd like to hear it. I already know to those who follow us on Patreon, but also if you're just out there listening and you're like, well, I don't think I want to talk about it. You can ask us and we'll talk about it. That's fine.
I mean, this isn't for everyone, but I've been teaching a high school improv and have this show Saturday, probably after this comes out. And I don't feel comfortable telling the public to come see these children get out and perform. But it's been so cool. I've been training children for like a whole training. Yeah, that works. Teaching like a whole semester and a half or so. And it's so cool to see them get their stuff together. And it's right. Like if you were teaching children like playability, these things, lines and scripts, and like there's like placeholders, there's like checkpoints that they can at least get to there. They're awesome. Like I've taught them skills, and they're going to make it up. It's not like anything rehearsed. We've practiced, but not really know. It's nerve-wracking. It's so exciting.
One of my really good friends, his son is in high school, and he lives in Syracuse, but he kind of went through a similar program, and he just had his first show, and it's like, he just loved it so much, so.
I'm certain it's life-changing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
What about you? What's happening now?
Oh, no, we got lots of really cool stuff coming up every Friday and Saturday at the Box Edits. We've got John Comic Club now, and we have great people are reaching out to us. And so in June, we've got Kate Willett, who was the headliner for the Funny Fest last year. She's been on Netflix, and Stephen Colbert. She's coming back for 2 nights in the middle of June. The tickets are available for that right now. I'll get my ticket, but it's going to super sell out because it's her in a much smaller space than she had for the Funny Fest. And I know with the drop-ins and stuff that we've had, that we've got lots of people in and seeing who comes by. So this is one of those ones where you get the heads up about it, and you can buy tickets now. So you can go on my ticket and buy tickets to see Kate Willett on June 14th and 15th.
That's so cool. Come down to the theater. It's been so fun to have these weird, awkward neighbors in the house. Like, there's these stand-ups out there that I don't know. Some of them I know a little bit, and it's like hard. It's like odds and stuff, and we're neighbors. We're going to have to like start hanging out more. And like, it's just a really, like, this community just doubled. Both communities doubled into it kind of way. So come join us down on the Comedy Commons.
Second goal. Come on down. But that's it for Goofball Coalition this week. Go out and be good people.
Yeah, please. Please. Thank you.